How's it going, people? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to a video on sports cars that also have really good fuel economy. Normally when buying a fast car, you just assume that it's not going to have great fuel economy. I'm talking like the sub 30, sub 20, sometimes even sub 10 miles per gallon. Well, all 5 cars in this video start at 34 miles per gallon and go all the way up to over 100 miles per gallon, obviously including running exclusively on electric power, etc. And all of them will do 0 to 60 in under 5 seconds, and they're all basically sports cars. So yeah, it's pretty simple. Don't forget, I'm in the UK, so prices in other countries may differ, and remember that whenever you buy any second-hand car, maintenance, repairs, insurance, all that good stuff is important to remember. Make sure you hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, subscribe as well if you're new, it's free to do, and hit the notification bell as well to stay up to date on when I drop 2 videos every single week. But without further ado, let's get into the video. Let's kick this video off with a slightly controversial but very recent sports car, the Toyota GR Supra, with its 3-litre turbocharged inline-6, which puts out 335 brake horsepower and takes the car from 0 to 60 in 4.2 seconds, making it the quickest car on this list. Despite all that performance, it's quoted as doing a combined 34.4 miles per gallon, which is not far off what you'd get out of a new 1.5-litre EcoBoost Ford Focus. It counts as the 5th generation Supra, although it does get some pretty harsh press from many hardcore Supra lovers for basically being the same car as the G29 Z4. In fact, let's not forget it's literally called the J29 Supra and is produced at the same factory in Austria as the Z4. Both cars are produced jointly, and once the platform and engine were complete, it was up for the separate businesses to develop the look and feel of the cars. The Supra massively resembles the FT1 concept car shown back in 2014, which in itself was inspired by a bunch of Toyota's past cars like the 2000 GT, Supra and MR2. It's very Marmite, but having been in and around one, I actually really like how it looks. One area I don't think is that nice, however, is the interior. Like the NSX that I featured in my last video, it's maybe not as premium as you might like for a sports car in this kind of price range, and you can tell it's very much a mix of BMW and Toyota in there. Obviously just my opinion, so feel free to ignore me. One cool additional point to note with the Supra is that it literally became a NASCAR, although I'm not sure I see the full resemblance. I would suggest this was mostly for marketing purposes, but whatever. These are listed for a minimum of around £42,000, with relatively low miles anyway thanks to being so new, and most sit at around the £46,000 to £47,000 mark with as little as 1,000 miles on them. Now, you may know that Toyota are renowned for their reliability, but the engine in this car is actually a BMW block, so can't necessarily rely on it in the same way, though you'd hope Toyota would do their due diligence. It's too early to tell whether these will hold up longer term, but it's important to note that there were a few recalls, so make sure you don't end up with the faulty one. Either way, a very nice car overall in my opinion, but I'd wait for it to depreciate a little more first. Another Japanese car in 4th on this list, basically from the same manufacturer, is the Lexus LC500h, which hosts a 3.5-litre V6 engine with an electric motor attached, making a combined 353 brake horsepower, which takes from 0 to 60 in around 4.8 seconds and to a mile per gallon figure of 34.8, slightly higher than the Supra. LC stands for Luxury Coupe, which definitely does this car justice, as though it does have a sporty although refined exterior, the interior is heavily swayed towards being luxurious instead. The center console is absolutely massive, so if you don't like your passenger, it doesn't really matter that much as they're practically in a different postcode to you. It was brought in as a welcome replacement for the SC, but is leagues ahead of it in terms of where it sits in the market as a truly desirable luxury sports car. It takes some of its design cues from the legendary LFA, in part because the factory that produces the LC is the LFA factory, reconfigured for the new car, and many of the master craftsmen, or Takumi as Lexus call them, are part of the building process of the LC, particularly around the leathers, carbon fibre and paint. So in some ways it's a distant relative of the LFA, and they don't actually look too dissimilar. It's also a very rare car here in the UK, with less than 200 on the roads in total as of the end of 2020, which may be in part due to its starting price tag, before specs, of £80,000, which is fairly punchy for a Lexus. These are still very much on their way down though in terms of depreciation, and are currently sitting at around the £49,000 mark at the bare minimum, with under 20,000 miles on the clock, and you're looking at around £55,000 for one with under 10,000 miles on it. On reliability, Lexus are renowned for generally making very solid cars, and other than a few defects on early models in particular, which can be sorted out under warranty and are mostly to do with the electrics of the car, the LC500h is supposed to be very dependable. I really like the LC. It's not a car I would necessarily consider personally, but it does look very good and was pretty successful too in the Super GT series, winning 14 of the 24 races that it took part in. If you've been following the channel for a while, you'll know I'm a massive fan of this one, one and hope to buy one in the not too distant future depending on circumstances, the Alfa Romeo 4C with its 1.75 litre inline-4 turbocharged engine, putting out 236 brake horsepower, which gets from 0 to 60 in 4.4 seconds. This small engine with a sensible turbo attached helps the car to achieve 41 miles per gallon, which is 5 miles per gallon more than you'd get out of a new Golf GTI despite getting to 60 a second faster. It's actually 6 or 7 miles per gallon better than the Golf R as well, and still beats that to 60 by a tenth. If you want to see a full review of this car, I drove one last year and uploaded a video on it, so go check that out. But the key party piece of the 4C is its carbon fibre tub, alongside the many other weight saving measures around the chassis to ensure the car weighs just 895 kilograms dry, less than the curb weight of a Mark 1 Mazda MX-5. It's this low weight that helps the car to be so quick to 60, but also to have such decent fuel economy. It's a stunning car in terms of looks, confirmed by the number of design awards it won. It punches above its weight in terms of how exotic it looks out on the roads, but on top of that, it's an interesting car to drive. Some people don't like it, suggesting the handling can be quite hard to predict, which makes sense as it's almost a square on wheels, but I actually found it pretty easy to drive both at high and low speeds. Tight corners are slightly tougher due to the lack of power steering, but that's a small price to pay for how exotic the car looks. The interior does slightly let it down for me, however, as it doesn't look and feel as expensive inside as it does outside. These are holding value very nicely at the moment, with the cheapest available for around £34,000, while the majority sit within the 35 to 40k mark with under 15,000 miles on the clock. You might be worried about reliability in these given the badge, but owners are generally quite positive about it. The auto transmission is such that you might find an overheating clutch if you're often in stop-go traffic, and a few have had to be replaced, but other than that, the main issue people really mention is the interior leather bubbling. However, if the carbon fibre tub gets cracked or damaged, it could be game over for your wallet. Huge fan of this car. When you finish this video, I recommend you check out my video driving it. I decided on that day that I wanted to own one at some point. I hope you're enjoying the video so far. If you are, make sure you hit the like button, I'd really appreciate it, and subscribe as well if you're new. Hit the notification bell, I post twice a week, and follow me on Instagram at carswithjb. I post every single day, so more car content for you guys to enjoy. Trying to hit 10k on Instagram and 100k on YouTube this year, so if you could help with both of those things, I'd really appreciate it. Just missing out on the top spot, we have the second generation Porsche Panamera 4E Hybrid, one of the best looking sports shooting brakes available in my opinion. It hosts a 2.9 litre twin turbocharged V6 engine with an electric motor too, putting out a total of 455 brake horsepower, which gets from 0 to 60 in a Golf R matching time of 4.5 seconds. The second gen was released in 2016 and comes as both the fastback and shooting brake or Sport Turismo variants. Despite having a longer wheelbase and being wider and taller than the previous generation, reviewers of the car noted very quickly that the handling is not dissimilar to that of a 911, although this is heavily spec dependent, as you could entirely spec one of these for comfort. The interiors are typically Porsche and are actually a very nice place to be. Again, there were plenty of spec options available from factory on these, so worth looking around until you find one that has the right level of sportiness in terms of feel and aesthetics, and the right colours and materials on the interior too. My personal favourite is either the two-tone burgundy and black or the tan. Compared with all the other cars on this list too, you get a car that's far more practical, with over 405 litres of luggage capacity and 4 seats, so you can either have a family or just flex in your car with more of your friends. Generally, the fastbacks are cheaper to buy and are listed for a minimum of around £55,000 with around 50k on the clock, but you'll find Sport Turismos for under 60 grand with less than 30k on the clock. Reports of issues with these are pretty rare other than the standard recalls early on, and owners generally seem relatively pleased. It looks like some owners got lemons with poor electrical problems in particular, and some owners have challenged the build quality of the interior, suggesting there are a few unexpected rattles or parts coming loose, but most of the problems that I could find were pretty simple, like not being able to connect the car to their garage doors and that kind of stuff. If I was going for one, I'd take the Sport Turismo for sure, but as an overall, I'm definitely a fan of the Panamera. It would almost be rude not to include this car in this video on depreciated sports cars with great fuel economy, and by the way, it's not the NSX because I did that in the last video. The BMW i8 takes the top spot thanks to its weighted max miles per gallon figure of 128.4, assuming you spend some time in electric mode. This is all a result of that 1.5 litre turbocharged inline-3 engine with an electric motor, which puts out 356 brake horsepower altogether, taking the car to 60 in 4.3 seconds. The car's exterior was inspired by the classic BMW M1 during the design phase, as well as the previous BMW M1 homage concept car. You can definitely see the similarity similarities between them. When the concept came out, waves of people fell in love with its looks, hence BMW went down this route for the final design of the i8. As the car was also meant to mark a change in BMW's thinking and be a more futuristic car, a lot of the exterior brings in some sci-fi influences too, as well as the tech, as it was the first production car to have laser headlights. One thing this car shares with supercars is unnecessarily over-the-top features like the butterfly doors, which make getting in and out an occasion every time. If you're really after fuel economy, aim to get a more recent example, as the originals can do just 23 miles on their battery alone, but more than enough to do most short trips and get you to a petrol station if you run out of fuel. It will also hold its own on the motorway in electric mode, as it will do 75 miles per hour without having to turn the engine on. I've mentioned it before, but 2020 marked the end in production for the i8, which is unfortunate as the car was highly successful throughout its sales run, becoming the single most sold sports car with an electrified drive system. We'll have to wait to see what its replacement will be, which is supposed to arrive in 2022. These are depreciated pretty well so far, with the cheapest examples available for around £37,000 with just over 50,000 miles on the clock, while £45,000 will get you one with under 15k on it. On reliability, problems have tended to show up early, as in before 5,000 miles, with a fair few owners noting electrical problems and having to send the cars back to BMW for sorting. The cars come equipped with iDrive, which lets you see the full service history of the car, so worth checking this before you buy any of them. It will let you know if it's been crashed or anything like that too. A very nice looking car, and one that I'll hopefully get the chance to drive soon once it's possible to leave our houses again. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, hit the like button, I'd really appreciate it. It lets me know if I should keep making videos like this one. Massive thank you to the patrons for their continued support, and as well to you guys for watching. I'll see you in the next one.